Throughout this lab, we are going to calculate the amount of energy in different food products. During these calculations, we're going to be using this equation, Q equals mc delta T. Q is energy, M stands for mass, C is our specific heat, and delta T is the change in temperature. So this is our final temperature minus the initial temperature. It's our change in temperature. So during this pre-lab is a reflection of what you'll be doing, some of the calculations you'll need to do during the actual lab. So we're going to practice using this equation. So let's look at number 1 together. A 3-gram potato chip raises the temperature of 55 milliliters of water from 20 degrees Celsius to 31 degrees Celsius. So first, let's just see what we have here. Okay, here we have a container, and in this container we have some water. And underneath this water, underneath this container, we're going to have a potato chip, and we are going to light this potato chip on fire. So this potato chip is now on fire, and the energy from the potato chip is being converted, it's being transferred as heat to the water. Okay, so fire is it's a chemical reaction that is converting the energy from the potato chip into heat. And so that is going to cause the temperature of the water to raise just a little bit. So the water is going to become a little hotter, probably not hot enough to produce steam, but it might. We'll see how much energy our food has. And then we're going to have a thermometer, and we are going to measure the temperature of the water. So we'll have the initial temperature of the water, which might be down here, and then after we light that chip on fire and more heat goes into the water, the temperature is hopefully going to raise something. So here we have our problem. So, and in this problem, the temperature does raise from 20 degrees Celsius to 31 degrees Celsius. So part A says water has a density of 1 gram per milliliter. How many grams of water were used in this experiment? So let's just look at our water. We have 55 milliliters of water. So if we have 55 milliliters of water and we know that the density of water is 1 gram per milliliter, the question is, how many grams of water were used in this experiment? So we know that density equals mass over volume. Okay, we know that our density is going to be 1 gram. So 1 gram per milliliter is going to equal mass, which is our question, divided by volume. And we know our volume is 55 milliliters. So in order to solve for mass, we are just going to multiply by our denominator on both sides. So on our right side, notice 55 milliliters times 1 over 55 milliliters. Our 55 milliliters cancel out. So we will get, I'm just going to clear a space, we will get that mass equals 55 times 1, so 55 grams. And notice milliliters cancel out, so we're left with grams. So the answer for A is we are working with 55 grams of water. So now question B, how much energy in joules is given to the water from the potato chip? So now we're looking for energy, so we're going to use our Q equals mc delta T equation. We have just figured out the mass. So we're looking at the mass of the water, that was 55 grams. The specific heat of water is always 4.184 joules per gram degrees Celsius. So that's a constant that will never change in all of these problems. The specific heat will stay that number. and our change of temperature we can find by looking at our change in temperature. If it goes from 20 degrees Celsius to 31, so our final temperature is 31, our initial temperature is 20, so our change in temperature is 11 degrees Celsius. So now we are just going to plug in these values to our equation. So I want you to notice what happens to our units. Notice we have grams times joules divided by grams times degrees Celsius times degrees Celsius. So gram is on bottom, gram is on top, they cancel out. Degrees Celsius is on bottom, degrees Celsius is on top, they cancel out, so we will be left with joules. When you plug this into your calculator, you are just plugging the numbers in, so you should do 55 times 4.184 times 11, and Q equals 2531 joules. So that's the amount of energy that goes into the water from the potato chip. So part C says, assuming that all of the potato chip's energy was transferred to the water, how much energy in joules does 1 gram of the chip have? So we're assuming that the entire potato chip here, all of its energy goes into the water. None of it is lost out here, and the whole potato chip burns. So, going back to question C, we are just looking for the energy of 1 gram of the chip. Okay? We have a 3-gram potato chip. That means 3 grams of the potato chip, that entire 3-gram potato chip, produced this much energy. So this is for 3 grams. If we want to see how much energy was produced for 1 gram, all we're going to do is divide our energy by 3. So right now, we have 2,531 joules per 3 grams of potato chip. So that means when we divide this number by 3, that means that there are 844 joules per 1 gram of potato chip. So the 1 gram of the potato chip would produce 844 joules. The last part is to convert from our joules into food calories. So there are 4,184 joules in 1 food calorie. So how many calories, and notice the C is capitalized, that means a food calorie, does this potato chip have? So in this whole potato chip, we had 2,531 joules. So we are going to convert this into calories. So we want to get rid of the unit joule, so we're going to put that on the bottom because joule divided by joule would equal 1, and we call that canceling out because when you multiply something by 1, it doesn't even matter. It's going to equal the same thing. So we want joules on the bottom to cancel that out, and we're converting into our capital C calorie. So that's going to go on top because when joules cancel out, we want to be left with the unit calorie. So this is called a conversion factor, and notice that 4,184 joules is equal to 1 calorie. Those are the same exact value. They mean the same thing, they just have different units. It's like saying 12 inches is equal to 1 foot. They are the exact same length, just with different units. So by multiplying by 1 calorie over 4,184 joules, we are not actually changing the value of this number. We are simply converting it into different units. So when you do this, the unit joule cancels out and we will be left with calorie. So all you're going to do is 2,531 times 1 divided by 4,184, and you should get 0.605 calories. So that's how many calories this one chip this one made-up chip has. Go ahead and try and complete the rest of these questions independently or with a partner.